Admittedly, much of the time we spent with Dynasty has paved this perception where the particular territory of residence is in a heavy metal vein, right? The songs are much more aggressive on flair, and of course that drives an interest for me. I could see this piece going a number of ways. I mean, particularly, yes, on the heavy metal route, but even in metal, right? There's a general balance, and sometimes you'll see a group maybe play around with sound, right? Some groups, it might try new things, right? Mainstay presence might, of course, be that dominance and the aggression, right? A headbang, thrash type song on energy and delivery. But then you maybe have some songs that are a little more sentimental, softer on approach. I've seen plenty of examples of this, and we've borne witness to it together, perhaps on the channel, to various other groups' respects and credits. Maybe Dynasty could be one. I see potential on the name, though I haven't dug deeply into the lyrics yet. This is very much a fresh take. Maybe still on a semblance, at least just on the introductory verses, I could still kind of see that at play. I'm assuming, though, it's going to fall again in that mainstay pattern, but I could see variation. Either way, it'll be a pleasure, I'm sure, to highlight another tune from Dynasty, as they are quite a pleasure to entertain, and we're making our way currently through in terms of my introductory journey to their talents. As I told you a while ago in reference, we probably would someday, we are currently in the midst of a dark delight in understanding their talents here, perhaps together, right? Maybe a number of you approach on a familiar basis with them, of course, and you advance me in your familiarity. I know there are probably a number of you that fit that regard. But maybe some of you approach on a first name basis. To set a baseline for you, Swedish metal of a hard rock and heavy metal influence to a real power metal drive. Sometimes some extra elements brought in. I've noticed an electronic flair, a symphonic metal vibe. They're pleasant intrusions. Of course, the connection point, as many of you know, Nils Molin, signature vocalist in my regard. I've loved him in other efforts, whether it be through a collaborative project, say, for example, with Ad Infinitum. That was the first piece on Entrance, or Amaranth, where he's a ranking member of that group, and a beloved one, as really that group is, especially in the Swedish metal vibe. And I love that atmosphere, as I do, broadly speaking, European metal. Dynasty was bound to appear one day, and I'm making good on that perspective idea. I had them on the list for a while, and they had come in the way of recommendations before, and through advice for many of the comments I'd received in terms of other music coverage, which again, I welcome your company. Generally, I love having that fellowship spirit fostered when we get to inquire on music together, especially on a fresh entrance. And again, we approach perhaps a vast pool of perspectives and angles. I hope for that. It makes the experience much more rewarding rather than just listening to a tune in isolation. I love highlighting good art, and I feel quite honored to bring on such noteworthy talents like Dynasty, and perhaps, if I can manage this at all, foster an interest for you to dig deeply, right, into certain groups. Whether it be Dynasty, maybe you can take the journey with me, or maybe you haven't even set foot into the European metal foray, and this will be your first instrumental step. Either way, I like to give you the introduction, right, to develop an interest for you that we get to explore together, because this is very much, for me, a fresh introduction. I've only humored, I think, in total, 7 of their works currently, but many more planned. I'm enjoying, though, the excursion. As I do, I call this pleasant homework, but music for me, as I've said many times, is a beloved art form, and I love experiencing it mutually with you in a bit of an unorthodox manner, but still one that we can humor good works, because there is still good art that is existent in the world, and we just might not necessarily see it every day and in every landscape. You just have to know where to find it, and I've found a ready supply in European metal. I hope you like this group as much as I do. I've quickly fallen in favor with them. Again, harsh metal easily sets in with such vocal prowess on behalf of Nils, quite an attractive voice to listen to. I think you're going to quickly become enamored if you have not yet humored them. Let's see which direction Heartless Madness takes. Again, a bit of a softer approach, a mixture on feeling, or a more aggressive route to what is familiarized to Dynasty. Let's see which direction it takes. And if you've never been introduced, this will be a solid footing for you. I do recommend you dig back into our library as well, including the previous tracks you spotlighted from the Dark Delight, because it's been a great evolution thus far. This is our 4th piece in, but maybe it could instill that interest in you if we enjoy it together. Let's humor it for the first time. Oh, that's quite a quote. Not sure who stated that, but okay, harder route. I anticipated. Again, there's that classic metal flair from, music history. I love that. And the snare pattern feels quite familiar. There's more of a keyboard synthetic effect. It's a pleasant element, though. Beautiful vocal delivery on this, meshed again with those synthetic tones. Good builds in the force. The mapping here is exceptional. And again, all of the elements work together quite well. The vocal presence, the synthetic layering, the rock drive. And then impassioned energy. I love it. Riveting. It's so dramatized in presentation, but it just connects. Oh man, when that intrudes. Such a stable chorus, but highly energetic. Beautiful. Nice key change segue. Let's see again how long that lingers or if they return. I could see either respect in terms of the Swedish affiliation. Consider never groups. It's a frequent move. Potentially. And license for Nils to increase his range. Potentially. I think he returned, right? Back to the beginning? Maybe. Or maybe there's a change in inflection. Now I don't know. I'll have to go back and reflect. Either way, beautiful delivery as always. Beautiful. Again, I love how Dynasty, Amaranth, anything Nils is connected to, it's just reinvigorating this. It's reviving a classic metal presentation. Even if, again, it is particularly modern and intrusion, yes, right? Obviously. But you just listen to these pieces and they just connect so easily again to years past in terms of metal foundations. Like early days. Okay, so to reflect, there was a change on the key. You know, so I'm guilty of that in the past as well when you consider songs, right? Sometimes it's hard to, again, take in every detail at least and be correct on everything on a first viewing. There are times where there's been key changes and I've not noticed it because, again, it just becomes so ingrained in the work, right? You become a part of it. That's what music does. It connects. A song like this, just again, if you're a metal enthusiast, it entrenches itself in you. So you become quite enamored again on an original beat construction and key choice, but then there's a disruption, right? And it's suddenly this change, but because you're so blended into the song, you don't necessarily notice it, right? It's kind of a bit of a surprise that upon reflection, like, oh yeah, they do change it. There's that kind of point of confusion, but it's a pleasant one. And either key they pick, the song is excellent tracking. Again, I love that thick metal root, the pacing of it, the syncopation, great pattern. And again, that single-handedly revives, again, that classic feel. It's not just Nils that's doing that here, again, with the higher inflection points and a specific snare and vocal stylization. It's the instrumental side and the pattern of the structure of a tune that are also helping aid that revival. And I love that mood, right? I think, again, to my rock foundations, what brought me in early on, many years ago when I was a kid, and I said, maybe I've said this to Dynasties or Sect, maybe I've credited in other places. My early foundations were with Christian music. That's how I think started in terms of an initiation of deep reverence and love of this particular art form. it was probably around like 6 or 7 I became really engrossed in it. And that was more so from a foundation of like, worship and contemporary Christian music, which then didn't take that long for Christian rock music to intrude, and then Christian metal. And then I started spreading out, right? I highlighted a couple of our secular artists, and I've tried to maintain an even balance for sure in terms of content I feature here as well, and content that I like to listen to, right? Different artist offerings, because there's plenty abroad, and certainly in the Christian metal sphere, there's so many talented metal artists. But in the secular landscape, too, I don't want to ignore anybody. But I think, again, of those early foundations, like nostalgic groups. I think I did credit this one with Dynasty. Petra. 80s, at least when I was first I wasn't first introduced in the 80s, but the song came from the 80s. I think it was a 1985 release, Beat the System. I cannot help but experience vibes with that piece. Back to this, again, the heavy synth use, the keyboard effects, the pacing even. It's just got that classic rock feel, and you could probably think of other attributions from your own experiences in terms of your music foundation that this reminds you of. There's just this deep reminiscence with their pieces, and I don't know if it's intentional, but it's what it evokes for me in experience. But in individual standing, Dynasty just produces such wonderful heavy metal tunes that are for someone who, again, prefers the aggressive edge, with a fun rhythm and energetic pacing. And good lyrical delivery as well. Great navigation and sufficient vocal presence, always with Nils. This piece just delights, as really anything has off of Dark Delight and from Dynasty's track record of what I've personally witnessed. I'd love to hear if there's a cohesion of opinion down below on that, right? From whatever angle you approach, longtime fan, fresh listen, if that was the first experience for you, it's quite the starter. I still recommend you dig back a bit, but in terms of get the full picture, maybe take the journey with me of what we've humored in 2 albums evolution with this, with the Dark Delight and Fire Sign. But that was a really invigorating entrance, right? So I would imagine many of you would say, hey, if that compels an interest. I hope for that with music. The art I highlight, again, I try to find, well, in general, there's not been one artist or one song I've not loved showcasing, and Dynasty has been an absolute delight. I knew they would, promising entrance on behalf of, again, Nils being the connection point, but in the band's individual standing, I feel quite honored to call myself a fan of them now. And we're going to continue on one more piece, at least of what I can determine for a selection off of the Dark Delight, and then we'll move on to the modern album, or the more modern, well, yes, modern, but the more recent one. But it's been a fun journey. I've loved every step. I've loved taking it with you. And perhaps maybe you would agree, but it's a fun shared experience of sorts for you to gain an introduction to Dynasty as well if you fit such circumstances. I think Heartless Madness is a great cue to that. A fun, aggressive rock number. Energetic, full of life. I love it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.